disagreements on respect. We do think that in order to get an electoral support, there were too many concessions made in order to try and win the support of one section of the community on an electoral basis. I don't mean by that there's anything wrong with winning the votes of angry Asian and Muslim workers who are furious about New Labour and what it did in Iraq. That's an absolutely correct thing to do. The question is how you make sure you can then reach out to the rest of the working class and to win other sections of the working class, and we would have disagreements on some of the tactics that Respect have used with regards to that. But nonetheless, what I thought was extremely positive is the points that Kevin made that Respect, while they're anxious to get their candidates re-elected, and so they should be, we do want to see George Galloway re-elected, they don't see themselves as the whole of the alternative. They don't think that Respect is the entire answer. The reason that that's important is because there has been too much of the idea that a relatively small party comes along and says, we're the solution, working class, you don't have to worry about it anymore. All you've got to do is come and vote for us. We're not going to create a genuinely mass party of the working class on that basis. We have to encourage workers themselves to become active, rather than saying, as a small minority, we are here, there's no need for you to become actively involved. So I was very pleased with the points that Kevin made. And on the question of how a new party is going to be formed, we would agree that the left trade union leaders potentially have an extremely important role to play. Those trade union leaders who do recognise, Bob Crow, Mark Sobotka and others, that Labour is finished, that a new party is necessary, that's extremely positive. And we think that they, not necessarily by trying to affiliate their unions to a new party in the first instance, but by campaigning for the idea of a new party, calling the kind of conference that Dave talked about, can play an important role in the development of that party. We would just add, though, that both in the case of national trade union leaders and actually Labour MPs, much as we would very much welcome them on board in this project, it's not in the end them that are the most important. What's important is what comes from below. We've been campaigning for this party for more than a decade. Let me tell you, wishing for it on its own don't make it happen. If it did, it would have happened by now. What's most important is workers themselves, on the basis of their own experience of struggle, recognising the need for a political alternative, and they will then push the national trade union leaders if they haven't already taken action. Let's be clear, recently Cameron came back from Germany, and it was not a coincidence. He reappeared after discussions with Merkel, and it was only for a day, but he made all these statements to the press where he said, well, we've got to make sure that this capitalist crisis doesn't mean that people turn to the left and start becoming socialists. That wasn't chance. That was because he talked to Merkel and he'd heard about the Left Party. With all of the disagreements we would have with some of the leaders of the Left Party, the support that that party is getting is enormously significant and shows the potential that exists. But the Left Party initially came from the last recession that took place in Germany, the movements of the unemployed and workers that took place then, which then pushed a section of the trade union middle-ranking leadership to take action to found the WSG, which was the precursor to the development of the Left Party. Now, I just want to finish by saying that I agree with what the other speakers have said, that this discussion on the need for a new Workers' Party is completely different to anything that has come before. Even though we have been talking about it for 10 years, this time is different. Why? Because the world has changed. At the beginning of the last century, a very famous poet called Yeats said everything is changed utterly. He was talking about the 1916 Easter Uprising, and he went on to say, a terrible beauty is born. Today we don't yet have the terrible beauty, the mass movements of the working class. In fact, at the moment it would be more accurate to say that the majority of the working class are looking at this economic tsunami coming towards them and are a bit frozen by it. What can we do to look after ourselves, to defend our own living conditions? That doesn't mean that we won't get that terrible beauty. And even in the short term, we will get important struggles of the working class defending themselves against this economic tsunami. You've only got to hear the speaker we had from Ford Southampton, who I can see in the front row, last night, describing how workers there as Kevin said, and we did predict it, that capitalism has entered a profound crisis. And that means the ideas of the neocons, the free marketeers, the wave of capitalist triumphalism, which has swept the globe over the last 20 years, that has come to an end. After all, it was only a week and a half before the crisis broke that Brown was in Europe telling them the reason they had a crisis was because they weren't deregulating their financial markets enough. We predicted it, he did not predict it, because now, of course, it's regulation, regulation, regulation as the only possible way of trying to rescue their system. And so, even if it takes a while for economic struggles to develop, we are confident, and we're already seeing this, that there is a growing number of people who are interested in Marxist ideas. I mean, we've even won over the Archbishop of Canterbury, although we're not expecting to recruit him anytime soon, not least because actually the Church of England have quite a lot of hedge funds themselves, which is perhaps why he's upset about the economic crisis. But there are many young people whose only experience has been one of boom. For 16 years, Britain has been booming. Now it's been a boom where they've had low pay, tuition fees, wars, it's not been good, but nonetheless, they're now realising that was as good as it got, and are beginning to look for a new alternative. Our socialism event this weekend is probably one of the biggest we've had. It's certainly bigger than it was last year. Until we've added the figures up, we're not quite sure. But what is absolutely clear is it's got more young people at it who are new to political ideas than has been the case previously. And that has been reflected up and down the country. More people attending the meetings that we hold at the beginning of every university term, wanting to hear the case for socialism. And the reason for that is because of the crisis that exists in capitalism. I hope that those of you who are new here this weekend have been convinced on the case for socialism and have been convinced to join the Socialist Party. I would add, even if you haven't yet been convinced to join, we would like you to come to more meetings, to hear more, to find out more about socialist ideas, and we would hope to convince you. If you have been convinced, we want you to go away and discuss with others. There is no doubt there are young people now who will join our party if you go up and ask them, because they've already decided they're Marxists. They're already following our material on the internet. There are others who are not yet convinced, who want to be discussed with, and we should be very patient with them and to discuss and debate our ideas. But there is a growing audience for socialism at this point in time. Now,